Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed. Joining me today is Jennifer Kanarick of NVRides. Thank you so much for being here, Jennifer.
Thanks for having me.
So NVRides is something I heard about several years ago when somebody came to my Rotary Club to talk about this program that allows volunteer drivers to help people who are elderly or don't drive anymore to get around. Describe a little bit about how this program came about and who exactly is involved in the program.
Sure. So NVRides is a program that coordinates volunteer driver services for older adults in the community who are no longer able to drive. And what we do is we actually work with a network of community-based organizations that either offer volunteer driver services or a community-based organization that would like to start a volunteer driver program. A little background on how I got started. We're a truly collaborative program. We work with a network of partners who are the ride providers, and that is comprised of a diverse group of organizations. There are villages, which are grassroots organizations of seniors helping seniors age in place in their home for as long as possible. Shepherd centers, which are interfaith groups of seniors helping seniors. We work with faith communities, community centers in helping them to develop a volunteer driver program and helping them to increase the amount of volunteer drivers they have to deliver services to the seniors who are in need of rides. We were actually started through Fairfax County. Our program is housed at the Jewish Community Center of Northern Virginia. The county actually approached the JCC and said, you know, we have this idea for a program to increase capacity of local volunteer driver programs, and we would love if a nonprofit could administer this program. And it was something that at the time, the executive director of the JCC saw as a valuable program and very mission consistent with what we do at the Jewish Community Center. We have a very large and active adult seniors program, and so it really was mission consistent with what we did as a community center for the entire community. And you know, we took this project on. We enlisted Jewish Council for the Aging in Montgomery County, who had a similar program running for villages in Montgomery County, and the program was modeled after that. And also, we are an initiative of the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors 50-plus Community Action Plan. Back in 2012, the county ran a large-scale survey of the needs of older adults in Fairfax County, and what they found was that the growth of older adults in Fairfax County was actually booming, and actually was ahead of the curve of the rest of the country. And so our Board of Supervisors thought, you know, we need to do something for these folks who are aging in place. These are the people who built our communities, and we need to make this a very aging-friendly community.
So you want people to stay. In other words, you don't want people to just go off to Florida or
something. Exactly. And so we're one of 30 initiatives to help seniors in Fairfax County age in place. And you know, we are NVRides, so we do operate outside of Fairfax County as well. We have programs operating in Loudoun, City of Alexandria, and in Arlington as well. And part of our mission really is to increase awareness for volunteer transportation as a viable way for seniors to get to their trips of necessity, and those are medical appointments. That is the top of the list of needs. About 75% of the rides that our partners provide are medical-based. Grocery transportation would be number two. And then there are some other, you know, bank trips, pharmacy trips. One thing that we have looked at and what we've tried to increase is actually socialization rides. And so the Jewish Community Center we created a program called YNTK129 at the JCC. NVRides helped YNTK129 start, and those rides are purely social. They are for anybody wanting to get to a fitness program, wellness program, cultural arts program, any sort of socialization program that the J puts on at their center or at many of our outreach sites around Northern Virginia. We will help find a volunteer driver to bring somebody, because as we know, getting older is not just about visiting the doctor and getting to the grocery store.
Social isolation is the number one, and it impacts people's health, their mental health, their physical health, when they don't have an opportunity to engage with other people. And when people live in their homes, and it's great to be able to age in place, but you don't have that natural community if you can't get to a senior center or a club meeting.
Right. And another aspect of volunteer transportation is that the ride itself is a socialization activity. Right. Oftentimes, a person who utilizes the service, their volunteer driver might be the only person that person interacts with in a day. And so, there are multiple modes of transportation available. However, volunteer transportation really does fill a gap in service where local transportation services sort of stop. And it also provides that socialization aspect for the senior utilizing the program. And part of the mission of NVRides is really to increase the amount of volunteer drivers that we have in order to deliver more services, and also to fill gaps in service areas as well. We do have programs that we partner with operating in many areas around Fairfax County, but there are still some pockets where there really is not a lot of access to transportation, and that's where volunteer driver programs sort of fill those gaps.
Right, and so, I noticed, because my friend Stacy Picard is the point of contact
I know
at the mosque in Falls
Yes.
Church, so it's also providing some diversity of who your drivers are, since you have a diverse group of people who need rides.
Right, and I will say that Dar Al Hijra is an NVRides partner. They're very exciting for NVRides to partner with them, because they actually approached us, and they were developing some more outreach for seniors in the community, and they wanted to figure out how to, sort of round out their program, and volunteer transportation was an area that they wanted to focus on. And so NVRides helped them start a volunteer driver program, and we're very happy to report that they're up and running and operating in the Seven Corners area, Falls Church. And it's a real complementary service to one of our providers, Shepherd Center of McLean, Arlington, and Falls Church, who has a very large area that they're covering with volunteer drivers. And now that Dar Al Hijra is involved, they can help and coordinate with Shepherd Center a little bit more. And that's another piece of this increased capacity with volunteer driver programs. Before NVRides started, a lot of the programs were operating in silos, and many of the programs were not really aware of what each other were doing. And now that we have a network of volunteer driver programs, we're able to, like I said, increase our capacity, because we gather on a quarterly basis to talk about best practices, to share resources. We are able to coordinate rides that are a little bit more difficult to fill. For example, if there's an individual who needs to who lives in the city of Alexandria and needs to get to a doctor's appointment in Fairfax, well, that's a pretty long distance. So we're able to, with the tools that we offer, coordinate one-way rides where we can maybe get a volunteer driver from one organization to take the individual, and then find a volunteer driver from another organization to take them back. So it's really just again, increasing coordination and capacity so that we can really get more people where they need to go.
So there's a lot of information on your website, including who your partners are, how to contact those people by email and phone. How do you do outreach? How do you reach seniors so that they know that this is a service that they can take advantage of?
Well, so we really don't need to do much outreach for the seniors to find out about the services. They really do find us. We are really, obviously we're in a lot of resource manuals for Fairfax County and Northern Virginia. And really, the seniors find out about us somehow. And we do function as a referral agency as well, where if somebody gets through to our line, they need transportation, and we don't have a program to put them with or to refer them to, we will start to help them with other resources that might be available to them. We'll direct them to Fairfax County Human Services Transportation has a mobility manager whose charge is also to fill transportation gaps, so we might send them there. We might send them to a private transportation company. We might give them a recommendation for a TNC, an Uber or a Lyft. There's actually a great service out there called GoGo Grandparent, and it is actually a third party that will arrange an Uber or a Lyft for a senior who does not have a smartphone and does not know how to order a Lyft.
Wow.
So it's an actual landline that a senior can call, just like a taxi, and they can have an account with them, and when they need to go somewhere, they'll order the Uber or Lyft for them. And it's a really good alternative for somebody who's maybe living in an area that doesn't provide volunteer driver services. And again, in a perfect world, we hope that all of Northern Virginia will be covered with a volunteer driver program, but the reality is that resources are limited. So that's a great option because it is less expensive than a taxi. And again, a lot of the clients or riders, users of the service that we help are those who, sort of fall through the cracks, those who might be over income limits to qualify through services through local government, but also are on a fixed income and can't afford to take taxis to the grocery store or to 3 physical therapy appointments a week, because, that sort of adds up.
It does.
The volunteer transportation piece also helps with those rides that, you can't just take a taxi now to a cataract operation or a colonoscopy.
Oh yeah, they won't let you. Somebody has to
So
actually check you out and put you in the car.
Right, and that, I was just talking about this. We had the JCC put on a positive aging fair at the Government Center on Monday, and I gave a presentation with my colleagues from Fairfax County and Shepherd Center. And I made a joke about driverless cars, how this is sort of like the thing of the future, and all the senior transportation needs would be filled if we had driverless cars. But the reality is, no, you need that person, that companion with you to walk in with you to the doctor's office, and be your person. And oftentimes, there are seniors that we help that do have a support network. They do have children in town. They do have family members, but it's not always convenient for, a child to leave downtown to come back to Fairfax or Loudoun to take mom to the doctor's appointment. So that's where they utilize volunteer drivers for respite.
And it really does take a village, and we talk about that when we talk about children, and trying to support parents with young children, and you have several.
Right.
But we need to do that for seniors too, in that cobbling together or putting together what you can do to support someone who may or may not have family, but still need to get to and from.
Exactly.
And so, I love this concept and the fact that you are a convener. You are basically helping to move this collaboration forward. And so when we come back, we will be talking again about NVRides. So join us after the break.
Here she comes. Hi, Krista. Take you, Jamie, to be my wife.
When we found out that we were pregnant, we were just elated. We were just sitting there waiting for the pediatrician. She said she won't be taking you in as a client.
We are a lesbian couple, but she's just a baby. She's the one you're denying the service to.
Here she comes. Hi, Krista. Take you, Jamie, to be my wife.
When we found out that we were pregnant, we were just elated. We were just sitting there waiting for the pediatrician. She said she won't be taking you in as a client.
We are a lesbian couple, but she's just a baby. She's the one you're denying the service to.
I surrender, I surrender.
One day these rats were playing in the woods. Wanted some matches and that's no good. Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Fire. what you desire. Don't play with matches, don't play with fire. Yeah.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and today I'm talking with Jennifer Kanarick. She is with NVRides, which provides rides to older adults who no longer drive. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So we've talked a little bit about the people who need the rides and where they go. Tell us a little bit about the drivers and how these different organizations that are collaborate or under NVRides actually find the people to do the driving. Right.
So our program is really unique in that, NVRides clients are really the organizations that we partner with and help. We help them with their programs. And so we do that through a variety of ways. And the real sort of backbone centerpiece, if you will, of the program is a internet-based ride scheduling system. And we are able to bring organizations onto this platform because we have a special licensing agreement with the vendor. And what we do is we give and we set these organizations up with an internet-based ride scheduling system, which enables volunteers to actually log in and see the rides that have been requested for the week. So the beauty of this is that it really puts the onus on the volunteer to schedule their own rides, and it's a great volunteer engagement tool because you can sign up to drive for an organization and you can give 1 ride a month, you can give 10 rides a month. You'll just be continually updated by the coordinator to show, Mrs. Jones, for example, has to go to the doctor at 10 a.m. on Tuesday. You look at that ride and you say, you know what? I'm in that neighborhood on Tuesday. I could probably pick up Mrs. Jones, take her to the doctor's appointment. And again, volunteers are able to sort of choose their availability. Some volunteers will go into an appointment and stay with them if the rider requests it. Some will just drop them off, go do an errand that they need to do, and then come back and pick them up and take them home. And then it's 2 hours, and then they've sort of done their good deed for the day. And so the ride scheduling system is really quite unique to this sort of coordinated hub. So that's number one. Number two is we help our partners with marketing and outreach. Oftentimes, the driver programs that we work with are completely volunteer driven. It's different in every instance, but by and large, they're driven by volunteers, and they don't have unlimited resources, and they don't have a lot of time to really go out and do outreach for their programs. So NVRides supports our partners by going to volunteer fairs, by being in the community and figuring out strategic marketing plans for each organization. And each organization is different and they have different needs. And so we work with these partners to develop ways in which we can increase visibility for their program. So that's number two, is the marketing support. Also, another very unique or very interesting service that we provide is we pay for all the volunteer driver background checks. So all of the organizations that join NVRides will have to background check their drivers. We will fund that. And part of the reason for that is we want all of the drivers to be vetted by our standards, so that in the event that organizations that are sort of in neighboring communities needed to share resources, the client knows that this person has, or the driver has been vetted by the highest standard. And the way that it works with the driver is that it really is your own auto insurance that you utilize, which is your primary, but every organization that's part of NVRides does have to have a supplemental umbrella plan in place, sort of backing the driver in the event, God forbid, something above and beyond happened. And I don't know if this is wood, but we're pretty good. And so the profile right now of our volunteer drivers is a 67-year-old male. We have a lot of retirees, a lot of former military who live in this town, Also, I will say that we are really looking to, expand the demographics of our volunteer drivers and get the word out to maybe stay-at-home moms who have a little bit of time during the day. If it's okay with a rider to maybe bring your child on the ride to show them the importance of volunteering. Also, feeling comfortable around older adults as well, which is a really good benefit to teaching children about older adults and their needs.
So there's lots of different kinds of demographics. It probably
Exactly.
varies from one organization to the other.
Exactly.
How they're targeting
Right.
their recruitment.
Right, and what we say too is that when an organization joins NVRides, their program, they set their own policies, they set their own procedures. It is their program. We do not have any sort of authority to tell them how to run their program. We just make recommendations. And we give them these tools, the ride scheduling software, the background checks, the marketing support. Those are a free service to these organizations that join our network. But again, their program is their own. They can, some volunteer driver programs have a threshold of 18. You have to be 18 years old to drive. Some have a threshold of, car rental age, 25 to drive. They're all different and they're all very diverse. But at the end of the day, the main goal is to give rides to seniors who are not able to drive themselves.
And is it pretty balanced in that you've got enough drivers for the number of requests that you're getting online? Is it fairly balanced?
That's a good question. No.
Okay.
The needs are really only increasing for the seniors who live in our community. And I will say that it's probably a 1-to-2 ratio right now of volunteers to clients. And that's part of the NVRides charge, is to really raise awareness for the need for volunteer drivers in the community and be able to fill all the rides. And I will say that our providers have a pretty low unfilled rate. I would say it's under 10%, but there are times when there's just not a volunteer driver to be found for a particular ride. Our program, most of our partners have a policy of planning or booking a ride about 3 to 5 days in advance in order to give the organization time to find a driver. They will, in some situations, emergency cases, find a ride or do something last minute. I want to give you a little story, something that happened probably in year 2 of the program. Right now we're in year 5 of the program. And there was a social worker who called through to one of our partners in Western Fairfax about a gentleman who had a very bad infection in his mouth, and he needed to get from Reston to Sterling to see a dentist. He had no means of transportation. He didn't have, the resources. And the social worker came through to one of our partners. That partner said, we don't provide services in this area. The social worker was not aware of the fact that we did have a program operating in Reston through RCC, Reston Community Center. And eventually the call came through to myself as the coordinator of the program, and it was really an emergency. This person needed to be seen. And at 6 o'clock that evening, I was able to schedule the ride in several databases of partners that we had. And by 8 o'clock that morning, the ride had been picked up by a volunteer driver, and the person was able to get to their appointment. They were able to get the antibiotics that they needed. It really would have been fatal for this person. And it was really an instance where the ride really saved this person's life. And it was a true testament to how a coordinated hub works of increasing collaboration and partnerships so that we can deliver more services to more people in need.
And so is that kind of like, just as a visual, so NVRides is sort of like the center of a wagon wheel.
Right.
Right?
Hub and spoke.
Like you're the hub and
Yeah.
And so you can, in situations like that, be the force that says, I'm putting it out to everybody, looking for that one person who can accommodate.
Right. And I'll say that gentleman, actually, the person who accepted that ride became that person's volunteer driver, and that was the person for years that he called on to, that was his one driver, and that was who he requested to have. That's the other beauty of the ride scheduling system, is that, drivers can actually pick, well, I mean, you know, you don't want to pick
Right.
one over the other, but if
But
there's
it's a
somebody that,
relationship
exactly,
driven.
it's a relationship. And if it's somebody that, you know, they've driven before and they have a rapport with, they'll accept that. They can also not choose certain people to drive as well, you know, which
don't be cranky.
Exactly, which
Don't
which
be cranky.
actually, you know, which actually increases the flexibility of the volunteer role. And, you know, they can also see in the scheduling system, you know, notes that would be helpful to them, like, you know, this person has a hard time hearing, so that they know when they call them and tell them that they're coordinating their ride for them, they know to speak up, and they know, you know, some of the details that they would need to know a little bit more.
Like mobility issues?
Mobility issues. One thing I will say is that our volunteer driver programs for clients, you do need to be ambulatory,
Right.
so you do need to be able to walk with assistance from a driver from your door to the car. Again, like I said, oftentimes the drivers are older themselves, so they don't really have the capacity to break down a wheelchair and put it in a
Right.
car. With the exception of Loudoun volunteer caregivers up in Loudoun County, they will accommodate wheelchairs because they have some special vehicles. You know, you just basically, in order to, you know, be part of one of these programs, you have to be 50 or 55 and over, and really there's no other eligibility criteria. And in many cases, rides are free, and in some situations they are low cost, depending on the organization that is in your area. But you know, we try to do the best we can to refer people to resources that are available to them.
So people need to look on your website. If the people watching the show are like, well, I could probably drive a few
Right.
times a month,
Right.
they can go to your website to see your partner organizations, so you can see which one might be in your area or the one
Exactly.
closest.
And there's a contact form on there. You can put your information in, and we'll get in touch with you, and we will refer you over to an organization to drive for.
And as you said, and I think this is really key, is the flexibility. A lot of people are, especially people who are retired, getting into a volunteer situation where I can't do it every week, or I go out of the country, or I leave for 3 months in the winter.
Right. And I will tell you, retired people are some of the busiest people I have met, you know. And, you know, we do find that a lot of drivers, many of the drivers, just anecdotally, are people who have been helped in the past by a volunteer driver program. You know, they might have had a loved one who was going through some medical treatments or dialysis, or you know, and in that time that they needed the respite and they needed help, a volunteer driver helped them get their mom or you know their husband or wife to doctor's appointments, and they remember that as being such a gift to them that they want to also pay it forward, and that's where we find a lot of our volunteers as well.
Well, it's of any age, depending on the organization, but
Right.
it could be somebody who's a senior in high school, it could be somebody who's a stay-at-home mom, it could be somebody who is newly retired and looking for a way to give back to the community. And I think it's so important. I think you really helped shed light on transportation being one of the biggest hurdles for older people engaging, not just for their doctor appointments, but to engage in the community.
Right.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. This has been
Thank
very
you.
enlightening.
Thank you.
And I hope everybody at home understands that this is what you need to know about NVRides.